Hey guys, a very warm welcome to this session. I'm Ankana, your master teacher for social sciences at Vedantu. Hoping all of you are doing absolutely amazing. Welcome to the first session of climate. Let's quickly get started and I will discuss the following today. So Bacha, today we're going to discuss, we'll just have an introduction to Indian climate and weather and what are the various conditions and contrasts in the climate that exists across the whole span of the country. And then we will also discuss about monsoon and its mechanism. It's basically onset of monsoon, one part of it in today's session. So let's start with a quick introduction. Climate of the country. Bacha, one thing first we need to understand is what is the difference between the climate and the weather of a country. See, when we, of any region for that matter, so when we talk about climate is actually kind of a sum of total weather conditions. But before that, if I'm saying weather conditions, what do you mean by weather? So weather refers to the state of atmosphere in a given area at any point in time. But this area has to be comparatively small. It will not be very large. Like you can talk about a particular city or town or district or maybe state at max, but you cannot consider the whole country. But climate refers, on the contrary, to the sum of the total weather conditions, okay, and its variation over a very long period of time, and this time is mostly considered somewhere around 30 years for a very long, for a very large area of land, okay, for example for India. Okay, so that is the difference between climate and weather. Now what are the conditions which helps us determine the weather or ultimately the climate of any area? So there are few things that affects it. There are the key elements which helps us in determining the area, the weather and the climate of these areas. It could be the atmospheric pressure, it could be temperature, the winds flowing over there, the humidity, the precipitation, and all of these things, okay. So these are basically the key elements which helps us understand how does a weather can be determined or a climate can be determined of a particular place. Now guys, always remember the weather will kind of fluctuate in a day itself, okay. For example, the mornings can be hotter, however the evenings could be pleasant. So weather in a given day may fluctuate, but overall it will definitely have some common pattern, and that is what helps us determine the season, okay. If there is a common pattern that there's rain every day, then we may say that it's monsoon. So monsoons, even in monsoons, a particular day could be hotter or cooler in the evening or in the morning, depending upon how the conditions are, okay. So that's basically the key elements which helps us determine. Now if you talk about the particular relief of the country, of the nation of India, and what its climate is greatly influenced by, there are two factors which really affect the climate at most. That is the Tropic of Cancer and Great Himalayas. You might already be aware that Tropic of Cancer is the latitude that passes through India, and it kind of divides the country in two almost equal halves, which is the North Temperate Zone and South Tropical Zone. So when we go ahead in this, we will discuss what do you mean by tropical and temperate in terms of climatic conditions. But as you can see over here, this is Tropic of Cancer, okay, and this is what is dividing the country. This is the northern temperate zone and this is the southern tropical zone. It kind of divides the country in two regions, okay, and that is why the whole country is also kind of divided in two weather conditions, which we will dwell into in more details going ahead. Now the Great Himalayas, also Himalayan ranges, also have a great effect on the climate on the weather climate type of climate that we have over here. But India is actually India has a monsoon type climate, and we will see why it is that. So what happens, that entire world has been divided into number of climatic regions. So when you talk about the climatic region that India is, it has a monsoon type of climate, and we'll see why. So if I talk about Himalayas, the Himalayas have a great effect on the climate of our country. Why? Number one, Central Asia, okay, so if you talk about Central Asia, which is above, okay, if you imagine that this goes above in the world map, this part would be Central Asia, and here we have the Himalayas. So Central Asia gets very harsh winter season, okay, it's very cold in the winters, and these freezing breezes are going to flow, these chilly winds are going to flow. They flow towards India also, but Himalayas let them go back. They do not let them enter India. That protects us from these chilly winters, and that's why we do have extreme winters, but it is not as bad as it is in the central part of Asia. Okay, so it separates the Indian subcontinent from the rest of the Asia in terms of weather, and also protects us from these cold winds which come from Central Asia to India. Not just that, but it also makes the climate of, I mean, like in determining the monsoon climate of India, Himalayas have a great role to play. So just like it does not allow these winds, cold winds that are coming from here, it does not allow the monsoon winds which are flowing from this side to go outside, and they come back, they get deflected and come back and then cause the monsoon over here. Otherwise, if that would have not happened, India would have been a dry land. Now, if you talk about the variation in the temperature or climate in the nation itself, there is a huge variation. Why? So if I talk about the extent, guys, if I talk about the whole stretch where we have, I mean, like of the nation, of the land of our country, it goes from 8 degree north to 37 degree north. So naturally the stretch is a lot. It is of around 3,200 kilometers, as a reason of which there are a lot of regional diversities. Okay, there are a lot of diversities in terms of different weather conditions. Okay, and you will see these unique climatic conditions existing as you go from north to south or south to north. All of these areas will be very varied. Even the monsoon is very diverse. Okay, it is not the same for the Western Ghats, for the northern plains, for the northeast. It is very variable. But at the same time, monsoon acts as an element which unifies the entire country, and we will see how does that happen when we dwell more into the mechanism of monsoon in our country, in the nation. Okay, now as I told you that the climate of India is tropical monsoon type. Now guys, this in general, if I take broadly, it is the tropical monsoon type. However, there is a lot of diversities. Not every part of the country, as I told you, receive equal amount of monsoon. So based on that, we also have something called subtypes of monsoon climate. Okay, now let's talk about the variation and contrast in the climate throughout the country. Now it depends on three things. Okay, it depends on the temperature conditions, it depends on rainfall, and of course there are a few more factors which affect the temperature, which we will understand. So at your north, okay, see, you remember the Tropic of Cancer is dividing the country in two parts, wherein the first, the northern part is the temperate zone and the southern part is the tropical zone. See, tropical zone is the area which is kind of between the equator, from the two tropics to tropics, and in between equator. If I take in the northern hemisphere, it would be between the equator and Tropic of Cancer. Now, tropical character is that it would basically have a moderate, I mean, like it would mostly be hot throughout the year. It will not have a lot of variation. Its average will become somewhat hotter. But temperate, if I talk about the northern part, it is slightly different. So if I talk about the area that is in the north of the tropical Cancer, it kind of has a continental type of climate, which means that it is infiltrated with, you know, winter air in the winter and warm air masses in the winters. So it is infiltrated with winter air, cold air basically in the winters, and during the summer what happens, these cold air changes into warm air, basically determining the area to be cold during winters and pretty hot during the summers. Okay, and that is the variation that a continental type of climate has. However, if you look at the temperature in the tropical zone, you will not find so much of variation in this area. You can see this in the temperature also. So but if you look at the temperature of Rajasthan in summer, it goes up to 50 degrees Celsius. However, the summer in Dras near Kargil during winter goes up to minus 45 degrees Celsius. So we see that the variation is almost of 100 degrees, and that's what we are talking about, that the temperature conditions is absolutely different. However, if you look at the tropical zone, so if I'm talking about the tropical zone, it is the southern part of the country. So Thiruvananthapuram has on an average 22 degrees Celsius most part of the year. So that is what I'm trying to tell you, that how it varies. Okay, so exactly as I told you that the southern part of the Tropic of Cancer will remain hot with average temperature of 25 degrees Celsius to 27 degrees Celsius most part of the year. Okay, so generally features like cool summers. So this is what determines a tropical weather, which is like it will have comparatively cool summers for its latitude. For that latitude it should have more hot summers, but it will not be as bad. Okay, and it is cool but not colder in winter. So it's not like it will not be cool at all. It will be maybe pleasant, but it will not be absolutely cold like the northern part of the country. And also the temperature variation is kind of narrow. It's not so much as you see in the northern part. We just saw the difference was 100 degrees Celsius, but if you see over here it says average for 25 to 27 degree, which is hardly 2 degrees. So that variation is not as much. Okay, now places on the vast east westline coastline experience equable maritime or oceanic type of climate. So this oceanic type of climate, bacha, is the climate that I just described for you, where the summers are hot but not so hot, which it should have been because of its latitude. And also if you talk about the winters, they are cool but they're not absolutely like cold. And why is this happening? This is happening because of the sea effect of the water around the land. Bacha, what happens with water is that the heating and the cooling capacity of water is not as high as that of land, as a result of whichever area is near the sea, near the water, will not be having so much of extreme weather conditions or so much of variation in the temperature, because the sea will moderate. Okay, it will basically keep the conditions moderate over there. But as you keep moving away from the sea, the effect of land starts taking place, and land's capacity of heating and cooling is very extreme. Okay, it's very vast. I mean, like it's quite high. So it cools down immediately and it gets heated immediately, and that is why you will see huge amount of temperature variation as you move away from the sea towards the interior of the land. But if you look at the if I talk about how India is, so this is this is the northern region, and let's say this is the Tropic of Cancer. So this entire part is actually sea. So this area I would still not count, but if you move inwards, okay, towards this side away from the sea, as you keep moving in, the temperature variation will start having more and more difference. Okay, it will be more higher. So if you see the annual range of temperature, it clearly says is at least up to 22 degrees Celsius. Okay, now if you talk about the rainfall, till now we were looking at the temperature differences. Now if I talk about the rainfall, even the rainfall is very, very erratic. It's like it does whatever it wishes to, because of which the kind of monsoon that we have is something which is not known to people. Okay, unprecedented basically means that something that is not known to you. So every year the monsoon in itself will surprise us. You cannot predict that okay, this year this amount of monsoon is going to happen exactly in this range. No, it's not so fixed. It's very erratic when it comes to the rainfall that happens over here. And if you look at the variation, it again is huge. So Monsoon, which is in Meghalaya, which receives the highest rainfall, receives somewhat around 1180 centimeter of rainfall. And whereas in Thar desert in Rajasthan, it receives hardly 25 centimeter of rainfall, and the same goes for Leh also. So a lot of areas hardly receive 25 centimeter of rainfall, whereas there are areas in northeast which is receiving above 1000 centimeter of rainfall. So you can see that the annual rainfall variation is also huge. The west coast gets the heaviest rainfall in the month of June. However, if you talk about the eastern coast, they do not. They more have the winter rainfalls. Okay, so west coast and the northeast bacha gets a lot of rainfall, and they mostly do this during the monsoon season only. Okay, which is mostly around May, June, that part of the year. But when the monsoon is retreating, or basically when the different trade winds are blowing from the northeast, that brings monsoon for the eastern coast. So that variation is also there, like what part of the year is going to have, which part of the country at what part of the year will have its monsoon. So that is a different variation. At the same time, if you think about precipitation, if you are talking about that rainfall happens, it does not happen in some areas, for example, of the Himalayan regions, because snowfall happens over there. But if I'm again saying that it's a mountainous regions because of which the snowfall is happening, it should happen in the different mountains also. But if you look at the mountains in the southern part of India, they do not have snowfall. They never experience snowfall. They rather have the rainfall. And why is that? Because bacha, the Himalayas are away from the equator, okay, and that is above, higher in altitude. But if you talk about the mountains, which is in the southern part of India, is closer to the equator, is near to the sea. So the effect of these sea and equator makes no snowfall happen on these mountains. Now we will see what are these factors that affect the temperature. Of course, the location. Location is a very big factor in affecting the temperature of any place. Where the land is located. See, if any land is located on the equator, let's say, naturally the direct ray of sunlight will be there throughout the year, so it has to be kind of hot. If it is towards the poles of the globe, of the earth, then naturally it will most part of the year stay absolutely away from direct rays of sunlight, from good amount of solar energy that will not be received over there. So over there the temperature will tend to be more cooler, right? And it will be colder most part of the year. So the same thing is what I'm trying to tell you, that the location determines the kind of weather that a country has, the climatic conditions that a country has. Now how is ours? So you see the Tropic of Cancer is passing through, right? It is dividing the country in two parts. It is dividing it in temperate, and it is also dividing it in subtropical north and tropical south. Temperate or subtropical north. But your subtropical, continental, all of these things, temperate is somewhat the same, which means hot and humid summers and colder to mild winters. Okay, so the variation has to be there. So that is what we see in the north. However, in the tropical south, tropical season is basically where there's not extreme amount of, as you know, as we just saw, that the summers will be hot but not so hot as we see for its latitude, but the winters will be just pleasant, not really cold. Okay, so that is the difference that we see. Okay, and then of course the northmost part, it is occupied by high mountains. Continental type of climate is witnessed over there. But in the southern part, in the peninsular region, which I just drew for you, which is below the Tropic of Cancer, it has sea on all the sides. It has Bay of Bengal, it has Indian Ocean, it has Arabian Sea. And because of the effect of the sea, this part mostly has a very moderate climate throughout the year, and it does not have so much of temperature variation, unlike the northern part of the country. And we understand this why? Because it is because of the effect of sea, and sea does not have the capacity to heat or cool down so fast, right? That is what causes an equable temperature throughout the year. Then of course, influence of Himalayas, we discussed in the beginning itself, that it will not let these cold winds from Central Asia enter, which protects us from very bitter winters. And of course, it does not let these monsoon winds, you know, the southwest monsoon winds, which actually cause monsoon in most part of the countries in our in India, flow towards Himalayas, but Himalayas do not let them escape from our country, and they actually interrupt it as acting as a barrier and reflects it back to the country, causing monsoon. Otherwise all our rain would have gone to China, okay, and we would have been a dry region, but we are not. Okay, then if you talk about altitude, but as you go higher in altitude, as you keep going above the sea level, the temperature, the atmospheric density decreases, okay, and that causes a decrease in the temperature also. So it keeps getting cooler and cooler. So for every 166 meter that you go higher, the temperature that drops down is by 1 degree. See guys, it's a very simple logic. No matter how you go away from sea, okay, in terms of altitude or in terms of distance, the further you're from sea, higher, vertically or horizontally, the further you're from sea, the better are the chances for it to be the variation in the temperature to be there. The moderation is decreasing. Okay, now because altitude, the higher the altitude, the lower the temperature, is the reason why mountains have lower temperature. They are mostly cool compared to the plains. Okay, then of course distance from the sea, we have already understood that if you go away from the sea, the interiors will have more extreme continental type of climate compared to the area which is closer to the sea. Because of the water, it just moderates, it just makes sure that the moderation is maintained on the land. Okay, now bacha, western disturbances and tropical cyclones. Now what are these western disturbances which causes monsoon even in the winters? So in winters what happens bache, that, and you will see one thing that I want to explain to you before I move on with this is how does air pressure work. See, whenever a land gets heated, or it doesn't matter what part of of the land or the relief is getting heated, whether it is the water or the land. The thing is, whichever is hotter, be it the sea, be it the land, whichever is receiving more solar energy will be more hot, and whatever is hotter, be it land or sea, the air pressure over there naturally will be low, and the air pressure in the cooler area will be high. So the air will flow from low, because from high pressure to low pressure. Why? Because the low pressure will keep rising up, and then the high pressure will come to replace it, and once it gets replaced, the low pressure gets pushed off. Okay, so that's how the cycle keeps on moving. But how does this happen? So in summers, what happened, the Tropic of Cancer receives direct sun rays. Why? Because the northern hemisphere of the earth is facing the sun. As you know that the axis of the earth is tilted, so the northern hemisphere will be facing the sun, and as a result of which Tropic of Cancer will be receiving direct sun rays. Okay, that causes heating in the land in the northern hemisphere, which makes it low pressure land, and that is why we receive monsoons in the summer. But if you talk about winters, it shifts to Tropic of Capricorn. So naturally the northern hemisphere is not so hot now. So if it's not so hot, the land will have cooler region, which means it will be a high pressure area. So naturally high pressure areas does not really receive a lot of winds coming in and placing it like it does in the low pressure areas, but it still does, because there is a cyclic effect because of the pressure of lands. Right now what happens is westerlies flow during this time. So if you look on the world map towards the western side, western side of the Europe, and away from Asia also, western side of Asia also, there is Mediterranean Sea. Now in this Mediterranean Sea, what happens is that there are cyclones because of the jet streams, and we will quickly understand what jet streams are. Jet streams are are winds which flow at a very high speed in the upper region. Okay, at higher altitudes, these winds will blow. So because of these jet streams, there is a cyclone caused in the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, and that will make this area kind of low pressure, and also there will be a lot of moisture in this air. This air, again by the jet streams, the westerlies, which we know as, because it is coming from the west, is brought down in the northern part of the country. Okay, and because of this, it causes winter showers during this part of the year. So during winters, there is an inflow of low pressure depressions called western disturbances in the northwest of India. If you talk about the summer, okay, the whole of the eastern coast of India comes under the influence of tropical depression. So bacha, during summers what happens, equator and Tropic of Cancer is receiving most part of the sun rays. A huge amount of solar energy is being consumed, so this entire part is really heated up. So naturally it will cause a depression, it will cause a very low pressure area being brought up, being born up. So that is what is happening over here. There's a shift. Okay, there's an influence of tropical depression. Okay, so the whole of eastern coast of India will be facing this. Okay. Now if you talk about, see, this is the jet stream that I was telling you about, that these are basically upper air currents. These are air currents which flow at a very high speed only in the upper altitudes, also known as jet streams, and they actually determine the onset and departure of monsoons. We just saw how it does for winters. Okay, now if you talk about monsoon and its mechanism, bacha, how does the word monsoon came into existence? See, it was given to us by the Arabs. Okay, so Arabs basically used to come to India for trading purposes. Okay, and there's a whole story which is very interesting. So Mausam is the word that they gave. Monsoon came from the word Mausam, which basically means season, and it was given to us by Arabs because these Arabs used to come by ships for trading purposes to India. Now you see, when they started coming earlier, these ships were not mechanical, they were manual. Okay, the people were supposed to operate it. Maybe they used to come on small boats for trading purposes, and they noticed that some part of the year when they're trying to enter India, it is very easy for them because the winds are in their favor. But some part of the year when they're trying to enter, it's very difficult for them because the winds are blowing in the opposite direction. Now they notice that this is kind of rhythmic. It's not like it happens in a very erratic manner, that some part it will be different, some part it will be different. It happens in a very rhythmic manner. And that is when they realize that there is a proper seasonal reversal of winds which also causes the monsoon, and these are the monsoon winds. And these Arab traders is who identified this, and they named it as monsoon, which the word comes from Mausam, which is I think an Urdu word for season. Okay, so these navigators have determined that we have a system of seasonal reversal of winds, and these reversal of winds is what causes monsoon, and they are periodic winds. Okay, they actually happen in a rhythm, in a cycle. It's not random because of the Indian Ocean and the Arabian Sea also. It is affected by all these water bodies. Okay, now let's see how does monsoon originate. So one simple logic of this is bacha, land and sea breezes. What happens, you have read this, I think land and sea breezes is something that we have discussed long back in some previous sessions, in some previous classes. I think maybe in 6th or 7th standard itself you would have read about land and sea breezes. See what happens, because of this temperature variation and this air pressure variation, we know that low pressure air will rise up and high pressure air will come to fill in up. So whenever in summers in India, this entire part, what happens, right from Thar till Chota Nagpur in south, in the southern east, and Patna in the eastern region, this entire area is becomes a low pressure belt. Okay, because this land is getting really heated up because of the Tropic of Cancer is receiving direct sunlight. Now this entire belt has a very low pressure, so naturally winds will come from this side, which is comparatively high pressure, to fill in. Now the winds which are blowing from this side are naturally blowing from the sea, also because the sea is comparatively cooler to the land. Now when they blow from sea, because of being above the sea, they're carrying a lot of moisture with them. And these are the winds, because they have a lot of moisture in them, they cause the monsoon to happen. And that is why you see Tropic of Cancer receives most amount of heat during March to May, and after this these winds go to replace these high, low pressure air, to fill in for this low air pressure, bringing in the monsoon. And that is why end of May is the onset of the monsoon that we see in most part of the country. Okay, now this differential heating between the land and the sea, that is what brings out the this low pressure trough. As I told you, this is the low pressure trough that is caused, and these lands these air high pressure gradient, they build up between this. Okay, so this part becomes high pressure gradient. Now why is this becoming high pressure gradient? Because of the sea over here, these lands are comparatively moderate, but this part is really low pressure. Okay, so because of the sea, the land around this would have high pressure, and this will have become a high pressure gradient, and this will become a low pressure gradient. Now this air will flow from here to fill in, and these air will be carrying a lot of moisture in it. Okay, now these low pressure areas are attracting all of this wind, bacha, but it is coming from two places, and you have to understand very carefully. Now over here, just below this, we have the equator. So let's say this is the equator. Okay, and this over here is Tropic of Cancer, which is now basically have become a low pressure trough. Now this is becoming low pressure. It is attracting air from the high pressure areas, high pressure gradients. So what happens, they actually attract south east winds. Okay, from this side. All of this is water, but the moment they cross the equator, because these winds are going to occupy the space in this lower pressure trough, they get deflected and become southwest. And that is why we have southwest monsoon winds. Okay, so these are going like this, but because of the movement of the rotation, equator, and a lot of other factors, it gets deflected. Okay, it changes its direction, and then they blow as the southwest monsoon winds. And why are we saying monsoon? Because they are crossing through sea throughout this area. It's just water below the mass of land of our Indian subcontinent. You will see it's just sea. So they're just passing through the water, and they're carrying a lot of moisture and humidity and all of those things, the monsoon clouds along with them, and this is what will enter India and will ultimately cause rainfall. And when they blow from this part, from here to here, they pick up a lot of moisture from Arabian Sea, and in fact they will get divided in two branches, which we will discuss eventually, of Arabian Sea and of Bay of Bengal. Okay, and that is why these are named as southwest monsoon winds, as they blow from southwest to northeast. This is the direction. Now guys, if you are confused that how do we determine the direction of the winds, you just have to look at the bottom, okay, the end point of these arrows. In which area is this? So you can draw this quadrant, and if this is, you know, north, this is east, this is south, and this is west. So this is where they are. So you can see this is southwest, okay, and this is flowing towards the northeast over this side. Okay, so with that we have come to the end of today's session. We will discuss more about monsoon and more details in the next session. I will see you guys then and there. Guys, please make sure whatever questions you have, whatever doubts you have, because this chapter is a little bit complicated, that you put it in the comment section so that we are able to pick it up for the discussion in the doubt and the mentee session. Now let's quickly look at your homework question. Which out of the following places receives the highest rainfall in the world? Silchar, Monsoon, Assam, or Guwahati? Guys, I just want to take a quick moment to share this amazing news that Vedantu has given the best result in the IIT JEE Advanced and among all the other online classes, and we are taking this moment to celebrate our super scores. We are taking this moment to celebrate the hard work of our dear Vedants who have made us so proud, who have brought this new crown on our head, and of course the hard work of our dear master teachers who have really pushed themselves and these Vedants to make this possible. We have actually 547 students just from Vedantu who have qualified IIT JEE Advanced, and in fact in the top 10,000 we have 253 students. These are the Vedants who have scored the best ranks and have made us really proud. Okay guys, now on that note, I just quickly want to let you know that who do you think helped them, and and don't you think you're on the right platform? So being in grade 10th, you know you are on the right platform if this is what you also want to do, if this is also what you want to achieve. And you know who helped them? Of course the Vedantu Pro subscription. So you know what are the things that got solved for them and can be solved for you also. Your doubts, whatever questions you have right now itself, I'm asking you to put it in the doubt section. Imagine if you actually become a part of the subscription, how sorted it would be. All questions that you have in your mind will be absolutely clarified by the class teachers, by the master teachers. That is the most amount of effort that everyone puts into, that nobody should walk out of the class with any question in their head. Then of course the notes, and especially in social sciences, you always have so many questions in your head that ma'am, which books should I refer to, which is the proper notes, which is also clarifying all my questions, all my doubts. Then of course where to get good amount of tests and assignments, that is giving me enough practices that ensures that I am absolutely prepared for my board exams. Then it doesn't just end there. IIT JEE is just one of these exams. We have to keep preparing ourselves for so many competitive exams. So that's also there. Then of course schedule. So you have so many things going on, guys. You need some classes that needs to be at a timing that is preferable to you. So once you subscribe, you go ahead with the subscription, you have the choices of the schedule. Whichever time is most suitable for you, you can opt for the classes at that timing. Evening, afternoon, any part of the evening. And then of course choice of language, and all of this comes with a lot of bonuses. Unlimited live classes. You don't have to worry whether the session is premiered or not, whether you will be able to talk to the teacher or not, whether you will be able to interact with the teacher or not, because all the sessions are going to be absolutely live, and you can directly have a one-on-one conversation, which also ensures a lot of personalized attention, because who doesn't want that? I think that's the most important part in any class, is the interaction with the teacher. And of course whatever doubts you have, through that interaction will be solved by the class teacher and the master teacher, right? And just in case if there's any topic which you, let's say, are not able to understand, you have the options, because you have access to all the micro sessions. You can keep attending the classes for those particular topics on and on every day, almost in a week, because you'll have access to all these micro sessions. And just in case if you want to prepare for something, you'll also have crash courses for yourself, and you will have availability, accessibility to all of these. And then of course the performance reports. We will have live quizzes. You don't have to wait for the mentees, and it will give you a live in class performance reports, which keeps you in a check. Where do you stand and how well prepared you are in comparison to so many other people who will be a part of the session. All you need to do in order to make sure to subscribe to this is go on the link given in the description box or pinned in the comment section. Choose your grade, choose your board, then check out all the details that are there. Then just click on the get subscription button, and then you get 3 options of 1 month, 3 months, and 6 months. Whichever is the most suitable for you guys, go ahead with that. The bigger plan you take, the bigger dhamaka of discount you get. And how can you avail these discounts? But you just have to use the code AKEPRO. This is the code that is of Ankana Ma'am, and you can get discount up to 20%. So this is my code. Make sure no matter which subscription you are picking up, you are using the code AKEPRO. Otherwise you won't have the access to the discount. All you need to do is find the link in the description box or pinned in the comment section. But all the videos have the description, the link in its description box, and you just have to use this code to avail the discount. And I will see you guys in the next session, because with this we have come to the end of the session. Guys, do not forget to hit the like button, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel if you have not already, because with this you get the notification immediately for the next session whichever is going to come up, and you do not miss it. And make sure that you are putting your answers in the comment section, guys, not just in the live chat, because we pick up the winners for our leaderboard from the comment sections only. And I will see you guys very soon in the next session. Till then, stay home, stay safe, take good care of yourself, and have a great day and evening ahead. Bye people.